Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. Welcome to our FAFSA seminar. I am shortly going to hand over to Stacy Jenkins, who will be our presenter for today. Stacy, whenever you're ready.
Okay, is everybody able to hear and see me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. So as Sheree said, my name is Stacy Jenkins. I'm from the Financial Aid Office, and I'm here to present some information for you guys so you will be able to know how to better prepare for paying for your remaining semesters. So you'll be a little bit ahead of the game, okay? So this is a Zoom, so if you have any questions or anything like that, if you need me to repeat something, please put it in the chat. And Sheree, could you keep track of the questions for me?
Will do.
That's okay? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get started. All right, is everybody able to see the slideshow? Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I apologize. I'm trying to get it to go back. Okay. So paying for college, like I said, I'm the financial aid counselor for Old Dominion University. My name is Stacy Jenkins. Just a little bit about me. I've been in financial aid for about 12 years. I really enjoy helping you guys. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to know is that the FAFSA application opens October 1st each year. So the 22-23 FAFSA application is actually open right now, okay? You definitely want to make sure you try to file as close to October 1st as possible, and definitely by our priority consideration deadline, okay, of January 1st. The reason you want to file early is because the earlier you file, the more chance you have of being considered for any additional funding outside of the federal aid that we may have, okay? So you definitely want to make sure you file somewhere between October 1st and January 1st, okay? So again, the FAFSA application is the start of all that. So there's a couple of different ways that you can file now. It used to be you only had the paper form. They did away with that years and years ago. But now you can file the FAFSA online, so you can file it on the web, or they have an app that you can download and you can file it on your phone. You can still do the paper form. Just be aware that the paper form is the slowest process because you have to fill it out. It has to be mailed to the Department of Education, and then Department of Education has to upload it into their systems to process it, okay? And finally, there's the FAFSA on the phone, okay? I'm not sure about the FAFSA on the phone, what that process is like, that's new. But the FAFSA on the web and the app are probably the easiest and quickest way for you to get your FAFSA filed. Okay. So the benefits of filing the FAFSA on the web or using the My Student Aid app is going to be a more timely submission of the application. Again, these are the fastest options for you. There are detailed instructions, and there's always going to be a help feature that's available. There's also, if you do it on the web, on your computer, there's also a chat feature that is easily accessible, okay? You do have the ability to check your application status online as well. And really, it's a lot simpler than it used to be, okay? So one of those two options, either on the web or through the My Student Aid app, is the way to go. So to get started, this is what the FAFSA on the web will look like, okay? So this page will come up, and if you are a return user, meaning you filed a FAFSA, for instance, this year, and you're getting ready to file your 22-23 FAFSA, you'll go ahead and click the return user, okay? If you've never done a FAFSA before, then you will click the new to the FAFSA process, okay? The new to the FAFSA process has a more detailed process for you because there are additional information that you'll need to provide to get your assignment information and everything on that process. If you're a return user, you should already have that readily available, so you can go ahead and click the return user, okay? All right, so for those that have filed the FAFSA before, or if you've never filed the FAFSA, there is a tool called the data retrieval tool. And what it does is it imports your information and your parents' information from the IRS directly to your FAFSA. We suggest you use this if you can. For instance, it does cut down on a lot of issues, a lot of errors that you can make with inputting tax information. You may not know what to put where. This feature will fill it all in for you, okay? Try to avoid as best you can leaving anything blank, even if you have to put zeros, okay? Ensure that your name, ID, and social security numbers are correct. Please make sure you put your last name first, your first name last, or however they list it. Don't invert those because it may reject your information, especially if it's not matching to your social security number. Okay, we get that every year. So just make sure you're entering it the way it's requested. You can also put ODU school code, and we've listed it here for you. It's 003728. You can also type in Old Dominion University, and it will generate the school code for you on the website. Remember that if you're a dependent student, your parents must sign the FAFSA, okay? You will also be required to sign. Make sure if you're a dependent student, both of you have to sign the FAFSA. If you don't, then when we get it, it's going to reject because it's not properly completed. I hope that makes sense to everybody. I can't see you guys anymore, so. All right, so this is the page that will show up first for your login. Okay. So it will have just, are you the student or are you the parent or the preparer? Your parents can fill this out for you. If that's the situation where your parents are filling it out for you, just make sure that they remember that they're filling it out for you as the student and they're putting your information in the proper places and their information in the parent section, okay? Okay. All right, so going back to the IRS data retrieval tool. This tool allows for certain tax information to be transferred, as I said earlier. Participation is voluntary and you can choose whether or not to use the tool. But as I indicated earlier, it is an easier way to fill in the information if you're able to use this tool. So again, it will pull all the information needed on the FAFSA directly into the places and the fields that the information is required. Okay, and also the IRS will authenticate the taxpayer's identity. So when it comes in, we already know that it's a valid record for your information, okay? If the tax record is found, the IRS will transfer the information and again populate it into the FAFSA. And it also reduces documentation being requested from the financial aid office. So if you use this tool and we're asking for some additional information for a process called verification, you don't have to turn in your tax information. We'll already have it authenticated from the IRS, so we will waive that requirement for you, okay? Okay. Student dependency status. The FAFSA will ask questions to determine your dependency status. So you will have to answer yes or no to the questions. If you answer no to all questions, it will automatically make you a dependent. If you answer yes to any of the questions, it will make you independent, but you will also have to provide documentation once we receive your FAFSA to back up that information. So some questions that it asks on that section is your age. If you're over 24 at the time that you fill out the FAFSA, it will automatically default you to independency. If you're working on a grad degree, at the time you're filling out that FAFSA, it will automatically default you to independency, okay? So you won't have to provide documentation for those two items. However, if you are under legal guardianship, if you are military dependent, if you have dependents that you provide more than 50% of the support for, if you are married, you may have to provide, or recently married, you may have to provide some documentation for that as well. There are other questions there. So when you get to that section, just make sure you read that section thoroughly and that you select yes to any questions that may apply, okay? Okay, special circumstances. There are some conditions that exist that cannot be documented with the FAFSA. If that's the case, then you can send a written explanation and documentation to our office so that we can review them. And if we need to request any additional documentation, we will do so. Please be sure that you're reading your student email account, because that is the primary way that we communicate with you guys. So if you send in that letter and you don't receive a phone call, it may be because we've emailed you what additional documentation we need, okay? When we receive this documentation, all decisions that are made based on what you've submitted are final and cannot be appealed, okay? Because we have to send this documentation to the Department of Education, when the documentation is reviewed and a decision is made, that is sent to Department of Education. We can't change it after that, okay? I hope that makes sense to everybody. If you have any questions about that, you can type it in the chat and I will answer those in a little while. Okay. So your ISER, or the Institutional Student Information Record. So all students have access to their ISER. Normally what happens is once you've completed the FAFSA, you'll be able to see this information that you've entered. All the ISER is a record of what is on your FAFSA application, okay? So Department of Education, the CPS department, sends the results to the college for your FAFSA that you've listed on your FAFSA. The college will review your ISER, and if there's any additional documentation that Department of Education would like us to obtain and provide to them, that will show up on your financial aid portal, okay? So again, I mentioned earlier, please make sure you are reading your emails, not just for us, but if you receive any emails from Department of Education, you may want to make sure that you're reading those thoroughly as well. There are instances where we won't be able to receive your FAFSA, but you would have received an email from Department of Education in regards to an error on your FAFSA or more information that is required before they can provide the FAFSA to us, okay? So those pro tips that we mentioned earlier, those will help cut down on these emails that say that they can't send the FAFSA to us just yet. But if you do receive any email from Department of Education, please be sure that you respond to them in a timely fashion for whatever they're requiring from you. Again, keep in mind, we may not be able to receive your FAFSA because of whatever errors may be on your FAFSA that you get in these emails. You will get a confirmation email after you fill out the FAFSA. That's not the type of email that I'm referring to. Although it is good that you get that confirmation to be sure that your FAFSA is going through, I'm referring to error messages, okay? So just be sure you're checking your email that you put on the FAFSA as well as your student email account for any correspondence from us in the financial aid office. Okay, signatures. Again, as I mentioned, if you're a dependent student, your signature and your parents' signatures will be required. How you get your signatures is you have something called an FSA ID. If you filed a FAFSA, you probably already know about this, but this information is tied to your social security number that you input when you're signing up for the FSA ID. Every person will have their own FSA ID. Parents and students cannot share an FSA ID, again, because it's tied to your social security number, okay? So parent will need to apply for one and you will need to apply for one as well, okay? And when I say apply, you can't be denied for an FSA ID. It's just a process, okay? You will enter this information for students. You'll enter this information to log into the FAFSA application, either on the web or online. They may also request that information or at least your ID information when you're trying to do it over the phone. You'll use this also on the signature page, and you may have to enter that information if you're doing a paper application as well. So let's go over some special circumstances really quickly. All right, so if there is an unusual, uncovered medical or dental expense, if there's an extraordinary dependent care, if there is divorce, if you cannot obtain your parental information, if there's a loss of income or a death of spouse or parent, all of this information needs to be indicated as special circumstance on your FAFSA application. So in other words, fill out the application as it requests, but on the last page, it will ask you, do you have special circumstances to report? That's where you check that button. And then when we receive your FAFSA, there may be some additional information that we will request. to clarify what your special circumstances are. Listed here are just a few. There are others. If you need to discuss any of those, you can always contact our office to go over that so we can tell you what to do. But to start off, you do need to file your FAFSA as requested, okay? All right. So some frequent errors, again, Social Security numbers, be sure when you're entering your Social Security number on your FAFSA for new FAFSA filers. For returning FAFSA filers, you won't have to indicate your Social Security number again. You can renew your FAFSA. That's the returning users part that I showed you a little while ago. You won't have to re-enter your demographic information. So name, Social Security number, you won't have to, date of birth, you won't have to indicate that information again. But if any of these things have changed, like your marital status, your parents' marital status, income, of course, would always need to be updated on your FAFSA because each year we'll be asking for different income, as well as the tax information, you know, the full tax information, untaxed income, income tax paid, household size. Sometimes your household size may change, especially if you have siblings that are in college or siblings that have moved out. Household size may change. Okay. Now, this is not the same for independent students. Even if you have moved out, you still include your parents on the FAFSA. If you're under 24, they will still be included in your household size. Okay. The number of household members, again, that are in college. Again, if you have siblings that are older or same age that are in college as well, and your parents provide at least 50% of the support for them, make sure you indicate them because FAFSA will take that into consideration. And finally, it has real estate investment. It also has savings information and checking information that you can enter. Remember, don't leave anything blank. Try to enter zeros in those spaces if nothing applies, okay? So this is a sample of what your award notification will look like. This comes electronic now, and just so you know, all correspondence for next year will be all electronic. So actually, you probably won't see something that looks kind of like this. You will see it in your portal, so it will look a little bit different, but the components will be the same. The main thing I want to point out is that your cost of attendance at the top does include direct costs and indirect costs. Just remember, this is not your bill. Again, this is not your bill. It's only an estimate, okay? For students that are returning, you will be able to see your bill when you register for your classes. If you register for classes at the end of spring, you probably won't see your bill till midsummer. But remember, you can always use the cost estimator if you want to know what your charges may look like. That will give you a base estimate until we get the final charges that will be for the upcoming year. Okay. Listed here also indicates grants, scholarships, work study, and then of course loans at the bottom. So your complete award may not include all of these things, but it will have a section for the funds that you do not have to repay. Again, that's the grants and the scholarships. It will have work study if you are eligible for work study. Oh, before I go any further, if you are interested in work study, be sure that you select that on your FAFSA application so that when you file your FAFSA early, again, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you file your 22-23. But when you file your FAFSA, that will be noted on your FAFSA when it comes in. So if there are work study funds available and you qualify, we can go ahead and award you those funds at that time. Okay. Please remember that FAFSA is probably the largest source of your financial aid. So if you're interested, again, this is the starting point. So you have to have a FAFSA. If there is no FAFSA, likely any federal aid, any state aid, you will not be able to receive. Also, for a lot of our scholarships, we need to see your FAFSA on file because there's information that some of our scholarship committees need to be able to determine your eligibility. So even if you aren't interested in any federal aid, then still please file a FAFSA just in case, okay? Again, you must file the FAFSA every year. And again, October 1st is the opening date. Some common federal aid programs. everyone knows about the Pell Grant. A lot of people have heard about the Pell Grant. It is need-based, but there are some others. So federal FEOG grant. And again, this is why we need your FAFSA, because you have to demonstrate exceptional financial need, okay? And again, work study will show up on there. Work study can be on campus, need-based employment, okay? And then of course, there's scholarships and grants. Financial aid, this is the financial aid that does not have to be repaid, okay? We do have state grant that's available, but it's based on your residency. So you do have to be considered an in-state student, okay? So make sure if you're changing your in-state, if you need to change your in-state status, you do that with the registrar's office, and they will determine whether you're in-state or out-of-state, and we go based off of that information, okay? Awarded aid is based on merit, especially for scholarships. So make sure your GPAs are really high up there, okay? And that you file your FAFSA as early as possible, okay? Institutional scholarships. Now for entering freshmen, you're automatically considered for eligibility when you apply to the university, okay? For continuing students, there's no application that you need to fill out, but there is a short form that you can fill out. It is listed on our website in the scholarship section. And it's just things that we would not be able to obtain from your academic record. So if you were admitted into an honor society while you were here, if you have active duty service members, military members, we would not be able to see that on your admissions record. It would not show on your FAFSA. So that form has to be completed every year by January 1st, okay? So January 1st, 2022, you'll need to get that in. I usually tell students to make sure you fill that out before you leave for the holidays, because if you go home, you'll forget, okay? So try to get that in before you leave for the holidays, okay? And again, for continuing students, you don't have to do an application. After spring grades post, all students are automatically run through the database for all the scholarships we have on campus. Anything you qualify for, you're flagged for, and they have a committee that meets to determine who gets what scholarships, okay? So remember, our scholarships are very competitive. Most of our scholarships, you have to have a 3.25 or higher. So just make sure that you're making the grades, okay? If you already have a scholarship, and some scholarships are renewed, be sure that you review the notification that you received initially so that you can make sure that you're meeting those requirements semester by semester and year by year, okay? Okay, so after we've gone through all the grants, all the scholarships, of course, we have to talk about student loans. Nobody likes to talk about that, I understand. However, these are additional assistance options that you do have. So this will come from the Department of Education with your FAFSA as well. There are two types of scholarships, unsubsidized loan and subsidized. Unsubsidized loan is not need-based. The unsubsidized loans do accrue interest while you're in school. It starts accruing interest after the first disbursement, okay? And it does have a 30-day grace period, 6-month grace period, okay? After you graduate, okay, both do. So for the subsidized loan, it is need-based. The interest does not accrue while you're in school. Department of Education for the subsidized loan, if you receive that, is paying the interest for that on that for you, okay? So you won't receive any notification of that. We usually tell students if you can avoid taking the unsubsidized loan, don't take it. However, if you have to take it, just be mindful that it is accruing interest, okay? So if you can, if you work a summer job, if you work in a job now, try to pay something to that interest while you're in school. So all of that does not capitalize when you graduate. If you don't know what capitalize means, all that means is that it'll be added to the amount that you borrow at the end. So again, be mindful when you're accepting your loans that these loans do have to be repaid. So if you don't need to take your loans, don't take them, okay? And to determine that, make sure you're reviewing your bill first and what your expenses are gonna be, okay? All right, so outside of the student loans, parents can also apply for a Parent Plus loan. This is a loan that has to be taken out by a parent, a biological parent or adoptive parent. It cannot be taken out by grandparents, aunts, uncles, has to be a parent, okay? It is based on credit, and the parent is responsible for repaying the loan. This loan also accrues interest immediately, and there are deferment options that your parent can select when they're applying if they do not want to pay the interest right away, okay? So just make sure if your parents are applying for that you let them know to select that button so they don't have to repay the loan right away. Okay. So now after all of your aid has paid out to your account and there's an overage, there's something called a refund that will occur. Okay, so for the refund, students can consider saving it for future bills that you may have. You can consider paying any past due bills that you might have. You definitely want to pay any past due bills that you have as well, because that does affect registration. So if you receive a refund for a semester and you have a past due balance, try to use that refund to pay your past due balance. But you can also use it for books, any educational purposes that you have, living expenses, rent, groceries. You can use that for that. Okay. Now, be mindful when you have accepted your financial aid, if any of that refund is loan money, keep in mind you do have to repay that. Okay. So if you can reduce some of your refund by letting us know you want to reduce it, you have 14 days to do so from the time you receive your refund, or you can make a payment directly to Department of Education. You may want to just give us a call if that's something you're considering doing, so we can let you know the best steps to take so that we can reduce your refund and your loans. Okay. So if you are a returning student, this is definitely something you need to know. For new students, this is something you need to keep in mind going forward. There is something called Satisfactory academic progress. Okay. This is a government standard all students have to meet to be eligible for aid from year to year. Okay. So there are a few parts. The first is that you have to maintain something called PACE. Okay. So that means that of all the classes that you've taken overall as a student, and transfer hours do count as well, you have to pass at least 67% of those courses. If you drop classes, that counts. If you withdraw from classes, that counts. Okay. Actually, let me change that. If you withdraw from classes, that counts. If you're dropping the classes, that does not count. Okay. So there's a difference between add drop and withdrawing. Okay. If you are dropping a class, that means that you have come out of the class before the add drop date. After the add drop date, it is considered a withdrawal. Why that's important is a drop does not show up on your account any longer. Okay, so it wipes it out as if you never registered for the class. A withdrawal will still show up. So that will affect SAP. Okay. The other part of SAP is that you have to maintain, if you're undergrad at 2.0 GPA, if your grad is 3.0, also if your grad is 80% progression rate. I'm not sure if we have any grads on here, but I want to make sure I cover that just in case. For undergrads, you cannot exceed 180 attempted hours. Grads, you cannot exceed 90 hours in your grad field. Okay. There is a appeals process if you fall under one of these things, but just be mindful going forward. As you're coming in and out of your classes and choosing your classes, make sure if you have to, or if you think you have to withdraw, please contact us so that we can let you know how it's immediately going to affect your aid and how it will affect your staff. Okay. We will be keeping up the virtual appointments, so students can still make virtual appointments with us. You have to make them at least a day in advance, and our hours are 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. Students are assigned to a counselor according to your last name. Okay. So you can use this if you're able to scan this on your computer, you can do that, or you can go to our website and click virtual appointments, and you will see something that could look a little bit like, excuse me, this. Okay. So each student, like we said, is attached to a counselor, and you can make an appointment based on your counselor. Okay. If for some reason your counselor is not available, you can make an appointment with any counselor. However, we do suggest that you try your counselor first. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to unshare this stuff. Any questions? Cherie, do we have any questions?
It looks like, sorry, excuse me. It looks like we have one last question from David Morgan in the chat.
Where is that? I'm sorry. Can you read it to me? You see it?
It says, if you are a freshman now, could you apply for the Perry Honors College for freshman application?
So for that, I will refer you to the Honors College. That is actually a separate department. So if you think you may qualify for some for the admittance into there, I would definitely consider speaking with the Honors College.
All right, are there any more questions?
I see. Is it beneficial to file the FAFSA if you're using the GI Bill? Yes, it is beneficial. Okay, GI Bill only covers tuition, mandatory fees. Sometimes they have stipends, but for the most part, you do want to have another option to cover your housing, meal plan as well if you're staying on campus. Okay, so the financial aid can assist you with that. The only thing with GI Bill is, for the most part, if you have GI Bill, you can't receive state aid, but any federal aid, so loans, Pell Grant, FEOG, you can still receive all of those. So definitely still file the FAFSA. Questions? Are you considered for scholarships when you submit your FAFSA? You can be. You can be. Sometimes the FAFSA information that they need, that they require to determine eligibility may be on the FAFSA. So if you're considering applying for scholarships or any scholarships that you've seen, definitely still file your FAFSA application.
Okay, looks like we have one more from Emily Burgess.
Sorry, so I just used the scanner, the QR code that was just on there, and I used it on my phone. I don't know if it's just the date that's selected, but I don't see anyone that has I guess it would be A through F in front of their name.
Yeah.
I see G through M and then N through Z.
Yeah, so A through F, there isn't a counselor that's available to meet with you right now.
Okay.
However, you can schedule with any other counselor.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, keep in mind that even though you guys are calling and emailing, and you can do the virtual appointments, if you can't reach anybody or it's urgent and you definitely need to meet with someone right away, you can always come into our office. Does everybody know where our office is? I know Cherie does. Do you guys know where our office is? Can I get a thumbs up in the chat if you do? Or somebody, okay, I see somebody say no. Okay, so do you know where the football field is? We're right behind the football field. That's the easiest way I can tell you to get to it. If you go behind the football field, we're the building right behind it. Okay. Now, it does depend on which way you're coming. So if you're coming up Bluestone, it's a building right behind the stadium with the next building. Okay. Our building is called Rollins Hall. Okay. So if you have a map, just look for Rollins Hall. Okay. We are on campus. A lot of our students think that we're not on campus. We are on campus. Okay. We're at the far end of the campus, but we are. Okay. Can you use the FAFSA you previously had? David, if you're still on here, can you clarify your question? Is the FAFSA that is open now for fall 22 and fall 23? Yes, that's correct. So I think Kurt asked that question. Yes, that is correct. 22 and 23 is open now. Just be mindful, 21, 22 is still on there. So when you're making your adjustments, or if you filing the FAFSA, make sure you're clicking 22, 23. Okay, because they're both on there. Does anybody else have any questions about the FAFSA, about filing the FAFSA? Any questions in general about financial aid?
Looks like David just clarified his question in the chat.
Yes and no. So David asked if you can use your last year's FAFSA and just update the information. No, not necessarily. So on the FAFSA, when you log in, you can transfer the information for your name, your demographic information from the previous FAFSA, because of course, all of that is going to be tied to your account. But you can't put in the same information. So again, it's going to be asking for new tax information. So there is going to be some information that you will either need to use the data retrieval tool for, or you will need to manually update. Also, your time of study. So whether you're a freshman, junior, senior, that information you'll need to update. So there will be some information that will pull over to the new FAFSA, but that won't be income information.
All right, if there are no further questions, I want to thank Stacy. I want to thank you for being our presenter for today. Patricia, I also want to thank you for answering the questions in the chat. If there's anything you missed, this Zoom recording will be on our YouTube channel at ODU ABS. So if you need anything, please refer back to that. Thank you all for joining.
Have a good day, everybody.